everybody. Thank you for being here today for this issue launch of the Dunes Review. We are in our 23rd year of publication, which is kind of amazing. We actually have the founding editor in the house. She'll wave at you. Anne-Marie. Wave at you. She was really part of, spearheading this existence of this fine journal, so it's a pleasure to have you here today. 100. We can tell you more about that. Also, there is a raffle drawing happening. If you have not yet scribbled your name on a little slip of paper, please take a moment now to do so. We're giving away a few gift certificates for this fine bookstore establishment. So hopefully you've all had a chance to do that, and it's fine if you want to get up and do that if you haven't done that yet. And I'd also just like to recognize a few other people involved in the creation of this journal. Board members of Michigan Writers, if you would either just kind of wave, look around at the people who are waving, board members. They're part of the organization that really helps make this magazine, this literary journal, possible. And also our managing editor, Lujane Nosralla, is over here, also on the board. Very, very important people to making this issue possible. So thanks to all of them, and thanks to all of you. We have several people here, contributors, who have traveled a ways to be here. We have Massachusetts, and New York, and Colorado, and we have South Florida, and we have, where did you say? Texas? This is incredible. How cool is that? Thank you for being here. Did I miss anybody who traveled farther or as far? Okay. I like to start each reading of this journal by sharing the editor's note. Certainly you can all go ahead and read it yourself, but it is a nice way of setting the stage for the work that is represented in this journal. So, without further ado, I'll just read it. I have a confession to make. This is a book about me. As I scattered the small printouts of these poems and stories on my kitchen table, making notes, linking themes, stacking in piles, I saw elements of my recent life rise to the surface. Aging parents, loss and rebirth, loved things dissolving, reborn in new shapes. For a moment, I felt silly, selfish, as though I was appropriating the work of others to fit my own narrative. Then I realized I've been here before. So have you. This is what it's like to edit Dunes Review, at least for me. I dive deep into these words, and afterward, echoes of my own experience rise to the surface in the form of poems and stories written by others. Then those stories weave together into a new whole, not just a body of work, but a body of shared humanity. It's a testament to the way we're all connected, humans making our way in the world, and it's my favorite thing about putting this journal together. In the words of a friend's astute son, poetry allows us to convey something without understanding it fully. I don't understand my life, and I can't claim to understand yours, but I hope this little assemblage of conveyances might resonate with you as a citizen of our collective body. We're going to read, or you're going to hear through the work in this journal in the order that it appears in the book, and we're going to start with my good friend and fellow artist, Jen Sperry Steinorth, who's going to talk about her cover art on this lovely issue. We have seats over here if anybody else wants to take front row. I would like to just
Hi. In my real job, I'm a poet. Just kidding. That's a joke. Usually I'm a poet. But I'm really excited to contribute the cover art. I'm Jen. The photo that you see came out of a body of work called Kiss Me, We're Dying, a series of artist books, some of which are suspended from the ceiling and some of which are accordion style, and I brought one that is, they're made out of surgical masks, So there are leaves held down by gauze, and then there are pieces of text that's sort of been torn out of pages and selected. And I'm going to read a brief statement, an artist statement about this work. Can I also say a claim to fame, which is that mine is the son who astutely said, okay, Mom. Dear Earth, I am thinking of intimacy, frailty, and aversion, vulnerabilities in the body from which we turn away. I am thinking of breaches that harm versus breaches that heal. A whistleblower breaches trust to stop a greater injustice. A locked door breached may free a person trapped inside. Recently, my father underwent emergency bypass surgery. Is a kiss a breach? Failing to, what disease festers? To employ surgical masks as pages came to me while considering the paradox of such breaches. Violent acts whose intent is to prevent greater harm. These disposable masks are donned to protect, yet they also strip the wearer of individuality, obscuring the part of the body by which we recognize one another, eclipsing the mouth with an anonymous symbol of power, vulnerability, or poison. Meanwhile, imagine October. Your trees change color, drop their skirts. Falling leaves are an outward sign of an internal shift. The tree prepares for sleep, for a time when it can no longer prepare food. Where I live, people flock to collect the pretty leaves, press them between those of a book. Unlike the autumn foliage, we often avoid others when they show signs of frailty. I have been guilty of this. As a 40-something woman at an artist residency this fall, I noticed how often people congregated according to age. Our aversion to vulnerability, aging, dying can lead prematurely to another loss, that of intimacy. While my mask's exterior scabbed over with gauze and leaves, I wanted the interiors to hold something intimate. Behold a stack of discarded books. From those I tore leaves whose language felt private, seductive, that would reward the viewer who leaned in for a closer read. I hope the space created by these masks will invite the viewer to consider their own relationship to frailty, aging, mortality, to be gentle with themselves, to foster relationships with others, and, my dear Earth, with you.
The first poem in this issue is by Victoria Hudson, who is not here. Am I supposed to stand back here? It feels weird, you guys. I'm not going to do it. Welcome to Fort Smith, a bird sanctuary where life's worth living. I introduce myself to the classroom of fourth graders and write a list of poetry rules on the board. Be concrete. Be specific. These aren't really rules, I insist, because poetry doesn't have rules. This confuses them. I soldier on with a story about losing my dog. When I talk to children, I hardly know what I'm saying, to which they respond with enthusiasm. Any questions? Zoe crinkles her forehead and raises her hand. What do poems mean? My fingers feel cold. A few children shift in their seats. Poems mean the moment you discover my hair in the cuff of your sweatshirt. Hold it up to the light. They mean, I found some of your shampoo under the sink today. They mean a refuge for brittle birds, for alcoholics, for people who love too seriously. Poems mean my father has been dead for 8 years and my mother is still angry. They mean Dolores isn't doing well. She's drowning all the time. It depends on the poem, I say, but they can see I don't believe it. All poems mean stay.
Hi everyone, I'm Anne Casapini, and I'm reading You Are Standing Right in Front of Me. You ride your homemade bike to my yoga class on City Island in the Bronx. You travel from your apartment on West 122nd Street to the number 6 subway and take it north to the end of the line. Then you ride along the newly expanded bicycle path nearby, a welcome respite from the constant noise and traffic of Upper Manhattan. You splurge on a Dunkin' Donuts coffee just past the City Island Bridge. It's a 90-minute journey. You wear a black down vest under your fleece-lined denim jacket and a black ski mask with goggles to shield you from the January cold. You say you find it invigorating. You make a point of getting here an hour early each week, so you will have time to sit on the yacht club's small deck overlooking Eastchester Bay before class. You write and sketch in a large black journal. It's identical to hundreds of other journals you've kept since college. I arrive by 10:15. My Volkswagen GTI packed with mats, straps, blankets, and blocks for the yoga and meditation practice I will lead. Today, as I pull into the parking lot, I see you sitting on the deck by the water. You are framed in a triangle of sun, reminding me of a long ago day when I watched you drawing fishermen in Portugal, as local children gathered around you. We were all mesmerized by you. After our brief, ill-fated marriage 26 years ago, I found solace and meaning as a yoga instructor. And after many more years of invitations, you have decided to delve into yoga with me. So, on each of the past 8 Sunday mornings, you have helped me carry all the props up to a spacious second-floor room facing the bay, the boats, and the occasional mute swans. Each Sunday, before other students arrive for class, you launch into tirades. The epidemic of obesity in this country, the lack of proper fucking funding for the arts, your exposure to Agent Orange, a fellow Vietnam veteran who jumped out of an apartment building with his 2-year-old child in his arms. Each Sunday I cut you off mid-sentence and ask for your help sweeping and mopping the floors. You work diligently. You carry out 20 folding chairs from the storage room and lean them against the wall. And each Sunday when my back is turned, you place a chocolate Toblerone on my attendance sheet. Even after our divorce, you would always send me a box of those Swiss chocolates on my birthday. As the other students arrive, you settle yourself on the mat I have loaned you. You place a photo of your dear friend, Patty Brown, on the edge of your mat as you lie down. You practice deep breathing. Patty was a fireman who had gotten into yoga before he died near the towers on 9/11. You tell me that he had always encouraged you to do this. During the next 90 minutes, you bend and stretch, moving into unfamiliar poses. You struggle, smile, grimace, and sometimes curse out loud. When the class is over, you chat with some of the other people in the room. As I pack up my stuff, I overhear your random discussions on tensegrity, holotropic breathwork, and the lost art of plastering. Then, as you help me put all the props back into my car, you tell me you love the sound of the crystal singing bowl I played during the meditation period, and that listening to the vibrations led you into a serene mental state for a few glorious moments. We stand together in the parking lot. Before I begin my drive home to Westchester, you hug me long and hard. Then, You strap your bicycle lock chain around your chest and tell me you need to rush off. But still, you stand there right in front of me. We turn our gaze out to the shimmering water, bejeweled by boats. A pair of swans nuzzle each other near the shore. Then you hop onto your bike and disappear.
Hello, my name is Ellen Stone, and this is Dissolution. Tiny night moths jumble, twirl on the wet lawn like eager children who won't go to bed. They sing out of the darkened quackgrass, flit about my feet until the dog, Yeatts, bounds after them, endless dizzy circles in the midnight cul-de-sac air. I don't believe in magic anymore, but I want to lie down here among them, rising up out of the ground, small specters, cool and white, bringing me back to earth. Days slip beneath my fingers, gerbils gone with nothing to show. A full moon rises over the darkened soccer field. Coyotes howl in the woods, but I am viscous, flowing, ghost stream, eking under the boulevard, essence no one sees or remembers, on my way to the sister lakes. Brother, lamppost, will I find my way? Asphalt blanket to warm me, slow channel below, in the storm sewers, raccoons by my feet. I smell the end of summer, bruised mint fronds, gangly fennel crowns rising to face stars I never gaze at anymore. So many places I could root, but winter hurries me, slide into stream beds, swift as swallows, tipping for supper. Lyrical crickets are chiming from the green beans. Joy, joy. But these children here in the grass, what can be done for them? They are losing me now, like the sycamore, whose perfume remains long after the nighttime walk. Silvery trunk, luminous, mottled bark, stripped and bare. I cannot help myself. Once I was grass, and the field held me. No matter how far I walked, I could always come back home. Now the river is my hair, my body, tributaries spreading mercurial under the subdivision. I am whole, a watershed, but I have given up solidity, how much I hold within.
Hi, I'm Ginger, and this poem is called Symphony. It is late. My husband glides through the water on a final lap. Like an inverted shadow, a plane swims above him, the sky a watery dark. They pull through the world together like a bow in its string, set the world in soft vibration. My younger son, worn tired, climbs into my lap, and the stars begin to take their seats above us. The cicadas sing. They ring from the sky a deafening comfort song, twisting and ringing and singing. The wetness of his hair evaporates, quick as childhood, and his head sleeps to the beating of my heart. I watch the black with my older son, content beside me, and together we play his game of mistaking planes for shooting stars.
Hello, my name is Kirk, and I'm from Boston. I'm one of the travelers for today. Two quick things before I read. One is not important, the other is. The unimportant thing is that I was honored last year to have my first collection of poetry published. It's called Bodies of Wood and Water. It's actually on the shelves over here if anybody is interested, but that's not terribly important. What is important is I'd like to dedicate this poem called Common Ground to a friend and a man named Dave. Dave went into a coma 9 days ago after having a heart attack. Dave and I have worked together on water policy in the Northeast for a number of years. He is a staunch Republican, and I find myself across the divide, much further to the left than he is. But the kinds of dialogue and debate that he and I would have with people or just together were always respectful, and he was always the voice of reason in the room. And we need more conversations like that in every city, in every part of this country right now. 3 hours ago, Dave came out of his coma. He's back. And so he will bring that back with him and his persona. So this poem called Common Ground is dedicated to my friend Dave. Two men stand on a mountain slope before first light, rain trundling down their canvas shoulders, sipping tepid coffee from Styrofoam, the only way it works on days like this. They gaze down into the hearth of this ravine. They hear the river rapids far below, resounding. Blue blood socialist, Freemason libertarian, shoulder to shoulder, praising the scent of softened earth in this cloister of trees within a shared nation. Another sip. The man in the camo coat reaches into his breast pocket and hands the man in fleece a piece of paper, granting him the right to live upon and love this land as he does, for its rivers, for its trees and breathing them, for its coffee shared in Styrofoam when the new day just arrives. And all we hear are voices to each other against the backbeat of the river.
I'm Ellen again. This is a poem written after Matthew Olsman, who's an amazing poet originally from Detroit, who has a whole series of poems that he writes to inanimate objects. And there's one you should read, to a Lake Michigan shipwreck. This is called Dear Styrofoam Meat Tray, and it was actually written down in Frankfurt. Dear Styrofoam Meat Tray, Cryovac 3020S. You are a sleek ebony river, fine-lipped boat, bird-edged, shallow swimming pool, all smoothness, soft as a stomach, pressing this offering to us, O God, such flesh we did not kill ourselves, smoked trout and whitefish, salmon chunked under saran wrap, here, cupped on your pearly cushioning, what my father taught me, that which I cannot pass on. He caught his fish and gutted them over the kitchen sink, built a smoker, old rusted barrel in the yard. I saunter into Port City Smokehouse. Such holy transactions, my dailiness traded for fuel. Jesus and his fishermen, what would they think? Your oblation, such as you can, solemn and steady. No blood on my hands, but you and the lake, giving us again and again what we cannot give ourselves.
Hello, I'm Danny. I flew in from Denver, so also a ways away. And also, thank you to Kelli, who is taking pictures so that I can send them to my parents. All right, I have a poem. It's called Swarm. The whole left side of my body is the mosquito coast, and you are my homesick tourist. Take me with you back to winter, track me through the house, mop me up and discard me with all your other coastal diseases. Bag me, toss me casually onto your peeling sunburn memories, dig me back out with your hands ungloved. Press me, molding to your dry, dry lips, and beg forgiveness, which being begged for becomes unnecessary. Smack me when I get inside your ear. The harder you wallop, the louder the whole left side of my body will whisper into the whole right side of your body, right when you're falling asleep. Sting me and leave the stinger in.
And one more. This is called How to Explain. A children's hospital has to be learned through immersion. What could compare? When I left town to be with him, I'm sorry. When I left town to be with him, and came home again to my... I cry a lot with poetry, so excuse me. To my other little boy. The dead stalks of flowers were cleared away by friends. Even their snow of detritus, little fallen parts of themselves vacuumed clean. How could they know I needed them? In Fort Worth, I slept in an apartment sprung up new like a crop. At the end of every day of dying, of mending, I could stand at the window look across a field with a tiny glittering skyline at the end, hanging from my neck like a jewel. It was a skyline, a field, and me alone. What things do we try to make beautiful? The memorial outside his window cast names in shadow. Sunlight moved through inkless words, etched on glass, left giant renderings on rock behind it. John Ryan Gage, age 3 3/4. The distance between the etching and the rock. The distance between the 3/4 and the 4. Great fields of absence everywhere.
Again. This is called Proof with Birds. It's based on / responding to a short fiction by Borges. I don't know if anyone has read it. It's called Argumentum Ornithologicum. So, and feel free to, it's sort of instructional, so feel free to take part in it if you would like. Close your eyes and imagine a flock of pigeons. Go ahead, the poem will still be here when you return. Okay, now how many pigeons were there? And were they graceful? Of course, pigeons are not graceful, but homeless and unkempt, like prophets. How many of these lesser doves were there? They were not infinite, and they were not zero. There were at least 10, you'd say, but you've never been good with estimations. More than 10, but less than 100. More than 25, but less than 75. Getting closer, yes, but how many pigeons were there? You'll never know, yet they were there all the same, created by you in the moment when your eyes were closed. Do the birds know how many they are, now that you're not looking? A moot point. They stopped existing when you opened your eyes, just as the poem will cease to be when you leave the page.
This one's by Clare Hogan. Saying So. My father grew up watching baseball on a tiny television set in black and white, so the diamond looked less like grass, more like static. He remembers going to his first game and, rounding a bend in the stadium at age 5, seeing for the first time the flood of green. The thought never having occurred to him that the television did not do justice to what it claimed to capture as fact. A friend, also a poet, told me, "You're going to want to write a poem about that." Don't. She's right. So I won't. Instead, I'm back in PE class, left unpicked by my classmates for teams in soccer until the last moment when they picked me because they had to. Or else I think of how I try but fail to really get at what I mean to say. I needed you last night. I hate you. I wish I were dead. Hold me. The inexact mechanics of the mouth and tongue to do much of anything at all, or reach the ones that need reaching. Poetry makes nothing happen, said some other poet, which implies words are not precise tools, not spears, not blades, with which to strike at any world, let alone this one. Can't make grass seem any more like grass by assigning it a new name. Just like I can't make this poem be about anything other than my father and baseball, just by saying it's not. And a poem in which I tell my father I love him doesn't mean I really do, though I do love him. My regret, then, at not speaking up as I waited to be chosen for a team, please, I'm so lonely and ashamed, I'd like it a lot if you loved me, is useless. Even had I said that, which is, I promise, true. Who would have been moved to pick me, let alone love? Another friend interprets the saying this way. Poetry causes nothingness to happen, makes it be, moves the world away from itself, cuts it open into something wide as awe. My father, one of my greatest loves, before I ever knew him, finally seeing the field, so bright, no poem could ever touch it, except maybe by saying it over and over. It was bright. It was green. Or, even if I never spoke of my pain and my aloneness to my classmates, there was always the fact of my standing like a monument in the field as others played the game, arms wide, lungs full from yelling repeatedly, I'm open. I'm open.
I don't know what it is about white men cooking shows, but I can't get enough of that shit. Telling me the espresso powder won't give the dessert a coffee flavor, and me nodding like I didn't stand on a kitchen chair to pour Sunday morning coffee into the icing at 5:45 because guests would be there at 6. What I really don't understand with all of my vegetable mind is why I sit and watch them prepare meats. Butterflying chicken, opening a smoker, dry rubs. But I think it has something to do with my mother at 5:45, talking to herself even though I'm in the room, and taking things out of the oven, and talking back to Bush on the radio. In my first apartment, my roommate would walk into the living room, warn me she was using the food processor, and then walk back to the kitchen. My mom shreds the sunrise with her food processor, 6 a.m., crock pot. And my mother watching the Food Network saying, doesn't everybody know that? And me with my bowl of icing and a spoon sitting in front of my laptop saying the same. Once I was sitting in the basement in the dark, and my mom came down and didn't see me and stood in front of the pantry making lists in the air, okay, okay. And I don't know why, but I didn't tell her I was there while she carried armfuls of groceries upstairs. My mother's pantry is stocked like a bomb shelter. My mother said between pulses, you know, I was food insecure as a kid. And isn't that the best thing about us? That we can put words to a thing, that we can point and name things in the air. Roy Bentley was going to read a poem called Boyhood in between, but he's not here, so I'm going to read a very aggressively feminine poem. It's called Holidays. Does anyone here like to watch the Hallmark Channel around Christmas? Anybody? No? All right, well, enjoy. This is called Holidays. On payday, I buy fruits and vegetables. A good stripper in New York pulls down about $1,000 a week. I am not a stripper. I am not sure I am good. Amid bodies that recently lost 20, 40, 100 pounds, all the royal Ken dolls and their children, the lady behind me goes, your groceries are so colorful. She's pulled down a cart full of cans. I sink into the darkening water, and I'm clinging to the net of a Brussels sprouts bag. What are you going to do with that? She pokes a pomegranate. I go home and I watch the Hallmark Channel. I watch A Prince for Christmas, A Crown for Christmas, Marry Me at Christmas. I like how the women fall in love, get rich, and married in 90 minutes flat. It sustains me like
It sustains me, like going to the gym, the grocery store, and the bank on the same outing. I like how she's self-reliant in the beginning. She's beautiful and doesn't know it. I sometimes steal my neighbor's magazines from the mailbox. The fancy catalogs, the velvet couches, the leather armchairs, the foyer that transforms me. I buy what they're selling. I am sure that I will be the best host. I am sure that everyone is allowed to come. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kelli Fitzpatrick, and I'm going to read a short poem that was written the night of my first date with my boyfriend Cody, and that date happened about a year ago, incidentally, in a bookstore. As water. Remember that parking lot in the driving rain where you snatched my umbrella and leapt out, running round to my door, wind tugging you upward, and everything in the world pushed us inward beneath bucking black fabric where your sweetness let me laugh, hair streaming in my eyes. When we reached the door, we sighed out together the energy that gathered in our lungs, the thrill that gathered in our trek through something as simple as water that could never be simple again.
Hi, I'm Janet Greenhut, and I'm reading a short story called 7+1. Clare lay in bed that Monday morning, debating whether to call in sick. Just thinking about her job as a quality assurance tester sent her into a foul mood. But she'd called in sick the previous Monday, and so an hour later, she found herself skirting icy patches on the sidewalk as she hurried to catch the bus. The raw wind seemed to cut right through her flimsy boots, and her feet were numb by the time she got to the bus stop. But, miraculously, the bus was on time. The door opened. Clare boarded, swiped her card, and tumbled into the crowded aisle as the bus lurched forward. She managed to squeeze through the massive bodies and made her way toward the back as the bus continued on the route, taking on and discharging passengers. Eventually, Clare saw a vacant seat and popped into it before anyone else could claim it. The guy sitting next to the window barely registered her presence. The passengers were blessedly quiet today. Sometimes people got into conversations loud enough to be heard from one end of the bus to the other. For Clare, it was mildly embarrassing, especially when people discussed politics or described their physical ailments. What she never understood was why they didn't feel embarrassed to be sharing their private details with strangers. Clare settled in for the ride. She'd been taking this bus for so many years, she could name every street on the route, and felt as though she had a personal relationship with the people she saw walking their dogs every morning. In order to entertain herself, Clare had started a habit of creating lists. There were lists of things like all the movies she hated, the excuses she had given for not completing work assignments on time, and the jobs she had been fired from. Her latest was a list of her life's disappointments. It read, 1. Not in a relationship. 2. Stuck in a dead-end job. 3. Living in a barely affordable yet tiny studio apartment. 4. Failure to graduate from college despite going back twice. 5. Shallow friends who preferred getting drunk to everything except having drunk sex. 6. No marketable skills. 7. Living too many miles from everyone I care about. She liked this list not only because it summed up her situation so well, but also because it had 7 items. She liked the number 7 because of its oddness, and because it was associated with oddly arbitrary things, like the 7 days of the week, 7 deadly sins, and 7 wonders of the world. And because the list had 7 items, she found it oddly comforting, even though it was a list of things that should be terribly depressing. But she clung to it and repeated the list to herself like a mantra during the boring bus ride. This trip, on the 3rd repetition at the 5th item, which Clare disliked because she felt it was too long, the bus came to a sudden stop. People standing in the aisle lost their footing and grabbed for something to hold on to as they were heaved forward. Seated passengers were forced to look up from their phones. Claire's meditation was interrupted. The guy next to her was standing, and Claire realized he wanted to get off. She got up to let him out, sat down, and moved over to the window seat. New passengers boarded the bus, one by one swiping their cards through the reader. They all looked familiar to Claire. She saw the same people board the bus at the same stops day after day, year after year. At this particular stop, among others who boarded, she saw the clean-cut young man who dutifully read the Book of Mormon every day, the woman who, using her phone as a mirror, applied mascara without a single smear, and a couple that carried on a flirtatious conversation, but didn't seem to have a non-transit-related relationship. The front door closed and the bus started to move, and then it suddenly stopped again. The people in the aisle frantically reached for a handhold. The door opened, and a woman got on. This woman did not look familiar. In fact, so far as Claire knew, no one like her had ever boarded this bus before. She was dressed in a red coat, as crimson as the Heathcliff rose an old boyfriend had once given Claire for Valentine's Day. The coat looked expensive, definitely cashmere. The woman's lipstick color matched it exactly. Her hair was done up in a French twist. A French twist? She'd never seen one before, but what else could it be? After passing the driver, the woman proceeded down the aisle on her 3-inch spike heels, unperturbed by the jerking movements of the bus as it re-entered traffic, hands in her pockets, an enigmatic smile on her face that defied all others to outsmile her. People in the aisle moved out of her way, even though there was nowhere for them to go. She could have been Moses parting the Red Sea. Claire couldn't take her eyes off the woman. She glided effortlessly between the rows of seats, even when the bus suddenly came to a stop, throwing the other passengers against each other. And wouldn't you know it, the woman walked all the way back to Claire's seat near the rear of the bus, and as smooth and silent as a snake, slid in next to her. Claire felt a wave of panic rise up from her stomach and clutch her heart, which started pounding at an alarming rate. Her lips began to tingle, and the bus suddenly felt airless. Then the red cashmere sleeve brushed against Claire's coat, and Claire noticed that the woman's lithe but solid body gave off a faint, tantalizing scent. Her lovely hands with cherry red nails rested in her lap. The crimson lips were full and soft, still smiling that self-assured smile. The woman breathed. Claire breathed. And Claire's breathing started to slow down and deepen. Slowing and deepening, she became aware of the movement of her chest, expanding and contracting as she breathed, and she realized how tense she had been before that moment, how tense she almost always was, and in comparison, how different, almost alien to herself, she was beginning to feel. Claire's heart calmed down, and she became more aware of what was happening inside her. She started to feel a wave of warmth move up her legs to her pelvis, abdomen, and chest, and then down her arms. And this warmth caused her muscles to relax. Claire had never known relaxation like this, especially on a bus, amid all these bodies pressed against each other. She never would have thought it was possible that her muscles could feel as supple and warm as they now did. She wondered if her legs would support her if she had to get up, but it felt so good just to sit there with the warmth suffusing her whole body. She didn't care. Claire closed her eyes. She felt that her body had entered a porous yet protected place where she was aware of many more sensations than usual, but where none of them, even the disturbing ones, troubled her. The jerks and shudders of the bus did not bother her. She was not bored. She was aware of the other passengers, but she no longer minded them. She barely thought about them. She even forgot about her list of disappointments. Claire didn't care if the bus ride lasted forever. She wanted it to last forever. But it didn't. The bus slowly came to a stop. Claire felt a rustle. By the time she sensed the emptiness next to her, the woman was already leaving the bus by the rear exit. She saw the red collar of her coat disappear as the doors closed behind her. For a split second, Clare considered calling after the woman, demanding that she stop, come back, explain herself. But she didn't. It wasn't because it would have embarrassed her to speak aloud on the bus, as it would have just minutes before, but because she had a feeling the woman would only have smiled at her. The seat next to Clare remained empty for the rest of the ride. The warm feeling slowly dissipated. She stared out the window without really seeing anything. Soon she found that she had gone back to mentally reciting her list of disappointments. But now, an 8th item was added to her list. 8. Missed the one opportunity I had to talk to the only person in the universe who could have made a difference in my life. The bus pulled into the station and parked. Clare stood up. She lifted her bag and shifted the straps to her right shoulder as she walked to the exit. She wasn't sure she should have an 8th item on her list. It had been perfect with 7, but she couldn't help regretting that she had let the woman go without speaking to her. It was one more disappointment in a life full of disappointments. Why was she so unlucky? And yet, thought Clare as her left foot touched down on the sidewalk, and yet.
So I don't know if I'm next.
Oh, you're
but I think
next.
I am.
You're next.
All right. My name's Alan Hayter. I'm from South Florida. I came up here for this, and I never get invited anywhere nice, so I'm glad to be here. And the name of the poem is Virtual Vacation. Tokyo has more people than any other city in the world. Tokyo says she has cancer, but it's a lie. Tokyo sounds more densely populated than New York, but it's not. Tokyo is not Kyoto unless you rearrange the letters. Stark sonnets unlike your late Northern Goonie toy set. Tokyo is scared of Godzilla and automatons, but she doesn't believe in aliens. Tokyo is Edo, even if it's not spelled the same. Like how a lover can be a friend first. Tokyo is a lover and a friend, even if she won't board the plane to see Japan.
The next little series of poems, I'm gonna read on behalf of a couple of people, just because the next little trio of poems, to me, are like one big poem, and it's just an example of how the work in these journals just rise up and start talking to each other. You know, most of you have never met each other, but it's that commonality, right? Human existence. So I wanted to hear all these together, and there are more in this vein, but I'm just going to read here a couple. This is Jasmine Throckmorton, matriarch. Praise the woman who gave birth to this place, whose signature is the flowers asleep in their beds, and her daughter whose voice thunders in anger. Praise that woman who wilted and shriveled when disease came back. I don't know how to praise the moles burrowing out of the hair on her scalp, the mottled patches, blue veins cracking fissures across her legs. How pain ate lines into her forehead, kept her eyes half hooded and far away. Her body like a desert, the surface fractured. Praise her life in reverse, the wrinkles lifting and folding in on themselves, hairs darkening from root to tip, her cheeks plumping as though water gushes back. Now, cheek to cheek with her new husband, she slinks across the dance floor in heels. Now she plays bridge, tapping one finger on the card table to a waltzing rhythm. Now she is a young girl, hands cupped around a grasshopper in the backyard, peering through the crack, a living darkness. Somewhere in a desert, it rains.
Good Friday at the transplant clinic. We sit compliant A stream of names float in the air. Matthew, Florence, David. Mother goes to blood draw across the busy hallway. Now the wheelchair-bound line up. The most fragile of the mobile, wearing masks, shuffle their walkers. Almost sprightly at 74, Mom glows. Her new life, a young girl's organ. An hour's wait is nothing. Does a child's spirit exist separate from the body? Did she rise up like Jesus on that day we got the call saying there was a kidney? Her soul hovering above the cooler, curious. The lines are long. My arms feel hollow. I want to call to her, find a flight to Oklahoma. My mother's blood courses, looping gently through her circular riverbed of veins. I sit nearby, waiting, watching for any sign of our redemption.
This is Maria Tyrone's I See You. Here you lie asleep, still wearing your glasses. Better not to see your monitor flashing the enigma of magenta graphs, or hear the machine beep warnings like a truck in constant reverse. Here you lie, nearly 94, in this halfway house filled with neighbors who also lie behind curtained rooms. Mother, you can rest. No need to scrub anymore. Your brooms and brushes at home wait for the hands of Surinder and Rosario. Don't worry. It's spotless here. The floor gleams. Latex fingers reach from wall-hung boxes, and sanitizers spew germ-killing foam. When you awake, you'll be pleased to see a tiny steel sink. Please call me if you're alone. And if memory fails, my name and number are written with black marker on the whiteboard below the word daughter in extra large letters. Just ignore the poster of line-drawn faces that asks, what is the level of your pain? When the surgeon appears, I'll try to answer.
Hello, my name is Julia, and I'm reading Echoed, a work of nonfiction. All I wanted to do was carry the swastika flag in the parade. I wanted to be chosen. I was tall, pretty, with long blonde hair, but another girl was chosen. She braided her hair. Ach, LMA. I just wanted to shout, LMA. Gertrude was striking, with silver blonde hair twisted in a loose bun. Her words sparkled as her hands punctuated the air between us. What's LMA? I asked. Ger smiled. Lick my ass. Ger believed her stories worth telling. Repetition of spoken language was a symptom of cognitive decline, and during the next hour and a half, Ger rehashed the LMA story 3 times, a re-witnessing. She spoke the words in the same order, sentence by sentence, as if rehearsed daily. The accumulated days since November 10, 1938, numbered over 28,545. At one point, Ger said, it was the morning after Kristallnacht, night of broken glass. She held her grandfather's hand while they walked, bypassing the synagogue across the street from their home. My grandfather wanted to see what had happened in Schweinfurt, and he took me with him. I later learned the interior of the synagogue had been desecrated. They strolled to the Jewish neighborhood, a place Ger had visited many times. Her grandfather was friends with several Jews and chatted with the rabbi whenever their paths crossed. There they stood at the entrance to the neighborhood, frozen, for nothing was as it had been. Windows were broken in every house, shards scattered across cobblestone, and pieces of glass dangled haphazardly in panes. All manner of clothes and household goods, including furniture, pots and pans, and books, lay strewn upon the street. Why? Where were the people? Gare didn't know, and she didn't ask her grandfather, for he was so still and quiet, not like himself at all. I didn't let go of my grandfather's hand. I looked through the broken window of a home, and near the window was a table, and on the table was a metal bird cage. The bird cage door was open, and it was empty. And then I saw it. A flash of yellow darted across the room. It was a canary, flying unfettered. The bird swooped from one side of the room to the other and voiced no song, its wings swatting the walls blindly. A breeze had caught hold of a lace curtain. The bottom of the fabric fluttered outside. Gare looked up at the sky, hands clasped and resting in her lap, and I thought she might be done, but she wasn't. And in all the time I stood there, the trapped canary was unable to locate an exit and never escaped.
One last one from me. Thanks again, by the way, for having me and for including me in this. Really nice. And I also haven't been to Traverse City before, so this was a nice weekend. Okay, this is the last one. This is called Liechtenstein. I just want to be left alone, to have a name that's hard to pronounce and harder to spell, to follow strange men down a corridor, to light their cigarettes, to pour their 2 fingers of rye. I just want to call in a favor from a devilish fawn, to wish for more wishes and nothing else. I just want to bark back at Labradors, feed the good pork belly to strays, to freeze in a meat locker next to my nemesis, to dump a whole tin of cayenne in the stew. I just want to handcuff myself to the gates. I just want to remember what I came into the room for, to whittle this cane down to a sword, to stop a wild graveside and smell the flowers, to crash the car on the way to your house and keep driving.
This is titled Our Cedar Fence Near Free Soil, Michigan. I teach, but I'm super nervous right now. So maybe it's my family's here. So I remember when I first measured length and breadth, the rough-hewn cedar, splintered, red-hued, then cut to size, slender planks, tenoned, soon to be placed with care into mortised posts of the self-same stuff. Over time, I've watched the wetted wood change, watched as the hoary hue sets deeply into its fibers, as the work of man to keep out man begins the slow return to dust, to soil. And once soil, the food and eventual life of a single slender tree, that one day again will be harvested, hewn, and hung.
Thank you so much for your time and your attention, for spending some sunny Sunday afternoon minutes with us when you could be out in the sunny Sunday, which hopefully you get a chance to do. Once again, thanks to all the people that make this fine literary journal possible. I realized I didn't thank my readers, at least a couple of whom are here. Melissa, hi. Thank you. And I'm probably missing, embarrassingly probably, forgetting to thank people. But thanks to all of you, because without people to come and listen, this aspect of what we do wouldn't be possible either. It's certainly possible to put things in a book and put them in the mail. But I was just remarking to somebody at lunch that this thing that we do and gather and hear each other and look at each other's faces is really one of the most gratifying parts of putting this journal together. So thanks again. Please do support this fine establishment that we're in. As the proprietor, Peter, likes to say, this is a retail event. Browse around, take a look. Oh, we have to do that thing. Yeah, let's do that thing.